The traditional Mass and the youth. It is an evident fact that the traditional Latin Mass is drawing an increasing number of young people, young families, and particularly young men. We can ask ourselves, why is the traditional Mass so attractive to them? The traditional Latin Mass is truly the Mass of all ages and of all Catholic generations, not in the sense of every little ritual detail, but regarding its essential characteristics. It is the Mass of all ages because of the fact that its rite expresses in a clearer and more beautiful manner the essential truth of the sacrifice of Mass. That means the adoration of God, the Most Holy Trinity, through the offering of the sacrifice of the cross. The Holy Mass, with all the details of its rite, should reflect, as much as humanly possible, the awe and beauty of the worship that is offered to the Most Holy Trinity by the Church triumphant in heaven. God has inscribed in the human soul a deep longing for truth and beauty. The purer a human soul is, and the more it is filled with the graces of faith, the more spontaneously is it attracted by supernatural truth and supernatural beauty. Therefore, the pure souls of innocent children, the sincere souls of young people, the souls of simple, faithful people, of souls who are not yet contaminated by the clerical ideology of anthropocentrism in the liturgy, are drawn by the magnetism of truth, order, and beauty that radiates from the traditional Latin Mass. Young people feel in the depth of their souls that they are born for a higher ideal, even for heroism. The style of the Novus Ordo Mass, with its significantly reduced sacredness and ritual beauty, instead transmits mediocrity. Young people who really believe are not attracted by mediocrity. The rite of the traditional Latin Mass also transmits a clear hierarchical order and even in some way the solemnity of a military discipline, characteristics which especially attract young men. It is an undeniable fact that, at least since the publication of Benedict XVI's epochal Motu Proprio Summorum Pontificum, the traditional Latin Mass has increasingly become the Mass of youth. Introibo ad altare Dei, ad Deum qui laetificat juventutem meam. I will go unto the altar of God, to God who gives joy to my youth. These words of Psalm 42, which are recited at the beginning of the traditional Latin Mass, proclaim a fact we can all see and rejoice in. The traditional Latin Mass is drawing an increasing number of young people and young families. The Pope and bishops of our day should listen to the growing voice of young people who ask for a restoration of the living and venerable world of supernatural truth, of sublimity, which contains the rite of the traditional Latin Mass. This voice of young people could be paraphrased in the following words. Now we know and love the liturgical treasure of our Mother, the Church, the treasure of which we have been deprived. Today, the revival of the traditional Latin Mass is mostly carried out by younger clergy, by young people, and by young families. This is an encouraging sign of hope in the midst of a general liturgical catastrophe. The traditional liturgy of our Mother, the Church, is invincible. It has nothing to fear from any catastrophe. The facts show that since the promulgation of Summorum Pontificum, the traditional Mass has been a quiet and determined triumph in the life of the Church on all continents and the different levels of life among all ages. This is very clear. It's a very clear evidence that the restoration of the celebration of the traditional Mass and the traditional rite itself is not a work of man, but a work of God. Those who oppose this form of celebrating Mass, so loved by our fathers of the faith and by the saints, should at least heed the words of the wise Gamaliel, who said in the Acts of the Apostles, quote, "If this plan and this undertaking is of man, it will fail. But if it is of God, you will not be able to overthrow them. You might even be found opposing God." Dear faithful, especially dear young people, make the celebration of the traditional Mass your spiritual home, a piece of heaven here on earth, in this valley of tears. This liturgy should have an impact on your life, so that mutual love, patience, and the courage to confess the faith may grow in the parishes of the traditional Mass. Above all, however, the communities of the traditional Mass may bring forth many new Catholic families, that is, new domestic churches, and many authentic, real, and holy priests. God bless you.